I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. The room was heavy with silence, every eye fixed on Sarah. Her breath caught in her throat. What had she done? Just moments ago, everything felt right. They had made plans, laughed, shared hopes. But now, doubt twisted like a vine around her heart. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that, she had said. But the truth was that it was more than just a simple phrase. It felt like she had pulled a thread that began unraveling their whole world. A soft murmur rolled through the group. Faces turned to each other, eyes wide and questioning. Tension hung, thick in the air, a palpable thing. Sarah's fingers twisted into her jacket, her hands trembling. It was too late for second chances now. Then suddenly, the door burst open. It slammed against the wall with a deafening crash. Everyone jumped, startled. Hannah stood in the doorway, breathless. Her hair was wild, eyes wide with panic. "You have to see this! Now!" she shouted. Urgency slicing through the thick atmosphere. "What's wrong?" the others asked, their voices rising in alarm. "Just come!" Hannah's voice cracked, and they rushed to follow her. Their hearts raced, a collective pulse drumming loudly in their ears. The hallway was a blur as they hurried toward the back of the building, an invisible force pushing them onward. Hannah led them to the rear exit. Outside, chaos erupted. The distant wail of sirens pierced the air as flickering lights painted everything in eerie hues. They stepped into the cold night, breaths visible in the frosty air. And then they saw it. A crowd had gathered, a sea of faces twisted in shock. People pointed toward the street. Sarah strained to see, her heart pounding like a drum. Then she froze. There, under the flickering streetlight, lay a crumpled figure, a body. Her breath hitched again. It was Jake. Her heart sank. Why? Was he out here? He wasn't supposed to be. He had promised he'd stay close. She pushed through the crowd, dread pooling in her stomach. He lay still, unmoving. Panic clenched her chest like a vice. "Jake! Jake!" she screamed. But her voice was swallowed by the murmurs of the crowd. The paramedics pushed forward, urgency in every movement. Sarah's heart raced alongside their shouts. But then, something stopped her. A soft voice pierced through the chaos, like a whisper of wind. He knew! She turned, following the sound. It was Hannah again, her face pale and drawn. "He knew what you said, what you were planning." A cold shiver ran down Sarah's spine. "What do you mean?" Hannah's eyes glistened. "The meeting. He overheard you." "He thought no!" Sarah's world tilted. "He was supposed to—" "Sarah!" someone shouted, but it was drowned out by an urgent voice from the crowd, a cries for help. The paramedics were pulling Jake onto a stretcher, but he looked so small, so fragile. Then came the shock of the moment, the twist that shattered Sarah's reality. As they gently moved him, something slipped from his pocket, a small, folded piece of paper. Hannah grabbed it before it hit the ground, her hands shaking. She unfolded it, eyes scanning the words. "How could he?" she whispered, her voice tremulous. "What is it?" Sarah grabbed it, desperation clawing at her. The world around her faded away, and all she could focus on was the paper. The words burned into her mind. They weren't a love note, a farewell, or an apology. No, it was something much worse. It revealed secrets and ties that spun a thread of betrayal, binding them all tighter than they could have ever imagined. A breathless silence blanketed the crowd. "Sarah, Hannah said, but the words fell away. In that instant, beneath the flickering streetlight, everything changed. What else was hidden? What had been lost? What happened next? The question stung like icy wind, and fear gripped Sarah's heart more fiercely than ever before. The words on the paper blurred before Sarah's eyes. Betrayal. Hidden truths. Each letter felt like a punch to her gut. "What is this?" she gasped, clutching it tighter. Hannah's hands trembled. "I don't know, but what?" The shadows of doubt crept in, weaving through the gathering cloud as they stared, wrapped in shock. Panic bubbled within Sarah, roaring, louder than the sirens, slicing through the night. "Jake!" She strained to reach him, but the paramedics were blocking her way. "Get back!" one shouted, urgency now morphing into fear. The look in their eyes sent a chill down her spine. She could see Jake's face, pale against the contrast of asphalt, his body limp. Hannah pulled her closer, desperation etched in every line of her face. "We need to go. Find out what this means." In that moment, something shattered behind them. A scream echoed through the crowd, raw and jagged like glass. "Get down!" someone roared. A flash of light burst like a firework from the entrance of the building, where shadows danced in chaotic movement. Sarah turned. A figure emerged, a silhouette against the flickering lights, clutching something. Something big, gleaming. Her heart raced. "What's happening?" She choked, gripping Hannah's arm. They were frozen, caught in the middle of a nightmare. The crowd surged backward, panic erupting like a wave. Amid the chaos, she saw it, the glint of a weapon, its barrel aimed right at Jake. Her breath caught in her throat. "No!" Sarah screamed, bolting forward, every muscle screaming with urgency. But before she could reach him, a thunderous crack echoed through the air. Everything stood still. Time paused as the sound echoed, a shot ringing sharp and clean amidst the chaos. "Jake!" she cried, a sound of pure agony escaping her. Bodies stumbled, and the crowd swelled, merging into a sea of thrashing chaos. Then she saw it. Jake's hand twitched, a shockwave coursing through her. Hope ignited like a flame. Maybe he was... But her gaze landed on a figure falling, his shape collapsing onto the pavement, dark blood blossoming against the concrete. "Jake, no!" Hannah's grip tightened around her, pulling her back. "We have to go. We can't stay." But Sarah couldn't move. She was paralyzed, lost in confusion and terror. Then, like a punch to the gut, she realized her truth. That paper, those secrets, they now seemed meaningless compared to this. Hannah peered at Sarah, eyes wide with fear, and suddenly whispered, "That was for you." He was going to tell everyone. Tell everyone what? Sarah's heart raced. Blood pounded in her ears. She pushed her way through the crowd, fighting against the tidal wave of panic, desperate to reach Jake. "Sarah, you don't understand," Hannah pleaded. "It wasn't just the meeting he overheard. It was you." The pressure in Sarah's chest tightened. What did she not know? What had she done? The cold night air felt unbearable. Every step toward Jake was a step deeper into a nightmare she hadn't even begun to grasp. And just then, another scream pierced the night. "He's got a gun!" A flash of movement, and chaos erupted. Again, people began to scatter, running for safety, crashing into one another. "Sarah!" Hannah's voice cut through the din, but it was muted, like watching from underwater. The last glimpse of Jake, crumpled and still, haunted her. But somewhere in the crowd, another shock pulsed through her chest. A familiar face was rising above the chaos, holding a weapon, eyes fixed on Sarah with a twisted kind of understanding. "Sarah, it's your fault!" the figure shouted, finger brushing the trigger. Her world narrowed, the air thick with unease and unspoken truths. What had she really done? What lay beneath all the laughter and plans? The questions crashed into her, relentless and suffocating. And then, as the chaos swelled, Sarah realized nothing would ever be the same again. In that moment, time fractured. Sarah felt the world tilt beneath her, the air thick with dread. The figure, face twisted with rage, held the gun steady, eyes gleaming with something wild. "It's your fault!" they shouted again, voice sharp as glass. "Stop!" Sarah yelled, hands raised, trembling. She wanted to scream, to explain, to make them understand. But what was there to say? The truth hung in the air like smoke, foul and thick. Then something strange happened. The figure took a step back, eyes wide. A tremor ran through their body. "You didn't know, did you?" they hissed, voice catching. "You thought you were safe? What do you mean?" Panic rose in Sarah's chest. "What do you know?" The figure glanced down, a flicker of doubt crossing their face, almost as if they were reconsidering everything. He wasn't the only one who overheard things. And then, like a thunderclap, it hit her. The whispers, the conversations. You know something. Tell me," she pleaded, each word a desperate breath. Someone in the crowd yelled for the police. Sirens wailed louder, a cacophony racing toward them. The figure shifted, their grip on the gun faltering slightly. The sudden vulnerability churned the air, confusion rampant. "Jake?" Sarah's throat tightened. "What else did you hear?" "Something that changes everything," they replied, voice sinking to a whisper, eyes darting around. He wasn't chosen. He was the target. Those words struck Sarah like a fist. Target? Hannah, still gripping Sarah's arm, could only watch in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" The figure's gaze flicked between Sarah and Hannah, a wild glint in their eyes. "You think this is just about you? You both don't even know what you're mixed up in." "What do you mean?" Hannah urged, her voice almost drowned out by the chaos. "Tell us!" But before they could answer, another scream shattered the night. A young man, trying to flee, stumbled, crashing into the figure with the gun. In a flash, the weapon went off again, a crack that split the air, raw and terrifying. Time froze. The crowd gasped collectively, the world blurring into a haze of panic. The young man fell, grasping his side. Blood blossomed like dark petals on the asphalt. "No!" Sarah screamed, feeling a visceral wave of helplessness. The figure staggered back, shock morphing into rage. "You ruined everything!" they shouted into the chaos. Suddenly, like a sudden storm, confusion tore through the crowd. People pushed, shoved, clamored for safety. Hannah pulled Sarah closer, urging her to move, but Sarah was cemented in place, fear gripping her. "Move!" Hannah shouted, her voice raw with panic. Then, right before them, the figure with the gun fell hard to the ground, clutching their own chest. It was as if they finally realized there was no way out. The crowd gasped anew, eyes widening, breaths hitching. "Someone, help him!" someone cried, pointing at the fallen figure. But Sarah felt the tremors in her bones. Everything was spiraling. "What's happening?" she murmured, her heart pounding in her throat. And then she noticed it, a silver glint beneath the figure's body. A familiar shape. "The gun," she whispered, eyes widening in dawning horror. As the realization sank in, what she had thought to be the center of the chaos now felt like the mere tip of an iceberg. What secrets had wrapped around every one of them? And what did Jake truly know, if anything? "Jake," she rasped again, desperate for clarity. But the words echoed around her like shadows, becoming lost in the confusion of screams and sirens. Nothing would ever be the same again. Everything felt like a lie, a web of betrayal slowly constricting. Would the truth ever find its light? Or were they all forever entangled in the dark? Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. The world around her spun. Chaos blurred in a whirl of screams and flashing lights. The fallen figure drew closer. The weapon lay still, but the weight of fear pressed on her like a heavy fog. "What happened?" she gasped, eyes searching the crowd for answers. Hannah gripped her arm tight, anxiety radiating off her. But before she could respond, a voice split through the panic. "Get back! Move!" a shout barked out, slicing through the confusion like a knife. Eyes shifted. People stepped aside, and in the sudden space, a figure emerged. Tall, clad in a long dark coat, they moved purposefully, approaching the shooting scene. Sarah's breath caught as the figure stepped into the glow of the flickering streetlight. A face instantly recognizable. "No, it can't be," she whispered, her stomach churning. "Adrian?" Hannah exclaimed, confusion flooding her voice. Adrian, a friend, a familiar face from their past, stood there. But there was something wrong. The determination in his eyes was chilling. "Get out of the way," he shouted again, voice commanding, filled with authority. "I've got this." He reached into his coat and pulled out something shiny. Sarah's instincts screamed danger. "Adrian, what are you doing?" she yelled. But it was too late. In one swift motion, Adrian raised a flash of a badge high above his head. A police badge. "Freeze! Nobody move!" he ordered, voice resonating with command. The crowd hesitated, shock paralyzing them. Her heart plummeted. Suddenly everything shifted, unraveling the reality she had grasped. This wasn't just a random shooting. He was part of something bigger. Confusion morphed into chaos as whispers spread through the clustered faces. "What's going on?" someone muttered. "He's a cop?" Adrian's eyes darted around, assessing the scene. His expression a storm of urgency and regret. "I didn't, but I had to come," he murmured to himself, shaking his head. The fear in his gaze connected with her, and she felt a shiver down her spine. "Jake!" she called out again, desperation layering each syllable. But Adrian's focus was elsewhere. He knelt down, and for a moment, a flicker of something, remorse, passed through his expression as he looked at Jake's still body. "Damn it, Jake," he whispered. "You were never supposed to be here." Something twisted in her gut. The truth hung like a dark cloud. Adrian shouldn't have been there. It was an accident, or so she thought. "What do you know?" she pressed, voice shaky with urgency. "You all need to leave," he snapped, rising to face the crowd again. A shake ran through him. "Now! This is bigger than you think. It's not just a shooting." The crowd shifted uneasily, people murmuring, a wave of uncertainty washing over the gathered. Sarah could feel the shell of familiarity crack apart, revealing the raw wound beneath. What did he mean? Then, before she could comprehend, Adrian's eyes widened. "No, not now!" he yelled, suddenly taking off toward the broken figure on the ground, hands reaching to pull something from his coat, something sharp, glinting under the streetlight. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "Adrian, stop! What are you—" But before she finished, the atmosphere changed. A loud crack echoed. The shot of a gun fired. Time froze. "No!" The scream erupted from Sarah's lips as she launched forward, her vision blurred, her world untethered. But in the chaos, hope turned to despair, and despair twisted into pure confusion as Adrian dropped to the ground. A sudden impact, a flash. Pain exploded against her heart, and then the world shattered again. As the crowd erupted into cries and gasps, where one betrayal culminated, a storm of new secrets began to unfurl. What had they all walked into? What had really happened? Standing there, everything felt like a lie. They were tangled in a web they didn't even see, and now it was all unraveling. What was the truth? Adrian lay there still. Jake lay there still. But the question ripped through Sarah's mind: who was really left standing? And at what cost? In the silence that followed, dread seeped in, wrapping around her heart like a vice. What had she missed? Adrian lay still, blood pooling around him, spreading into dark puddles on the cold pavement. A shocked silence enveloped the crowd, breath held tight with tension. Sarah's heart raced faster than her thoughts, fear crashing over her like waves. "No!" she cried, her voice shaking. "Adrian, get up." Hannah grabbed her arm, eyes wide with dread. "We need to get away, now." But Sarah couldn't budge. She felt glued to the spot, as if gravity had pulled her down into this terrible moment. The scene around her twisted and turned, each face in the crowd reflecting horror. Then, a dark figure moved at the edge of her vision, a man in a black hoodie. He slipped through the throng, weaving and dodging like he belonged to the chaos. Fear took on a new shape in Sarah's chest. Who was he? What was he doing? "Look out!" someone shouted, but the panic was loud, and the warning faded away. Sarah turned just as the figure raised something to his chest, and a sharp crack echoed again. Not another shot. She instinctively ducked, but the noise was followed by an explosive blast of color. A smoke bomb erupted from the hooded man, filling the night with a thick, swirling fog. The crowd erupted into chaos, bodies crashing against one another in an overwhelming surge to escape the blinding smoke. Heart racing, Sarah felt Hannah tug her along, but all around was confusion. She caught glimpses of scared faces, eyes wide with terror, as the world around them descended into panic. "Stay close!" Hannah yelled. But Sarah's focus was only on the haze. The figure moved again, disappearing into the murky cloud. Then, suddenly, the fog parted and Sarah stumbled forward, eyes wide, her breath caught. The figure stood there, directly in front of Adrian's still form. In a swift motion, he dropped to his knees beside Adrian, hands moving furiously as if searching. "Stop! Get away from him!" Sarah shouted, but her voice was lost in the chaos. Then the hooded man pulled out a small device, and another wave of dread slapped Sarah's senses. What was he doing? "No!" she screamed again, rushing forward, pushing through the frantic crowd around her. The atmosphere shifted. A few in the crowd seemed transfixed, silently watching. The device buzzed to life, and a low hum filled the air. "Stay away!" Adrian's voice broke through from the ground. "It's too late! You have to go!" But the stranger didn't hesitate. He pressed a button, and an explosion of sound filled the night. A loud siren wailing echoed sharply, drowning out everything else. Before Sarah could react, a piercing shriek cut through the air. "It's all connected!" the man shouted, eyes locked on Sarah, words laced with urgency. "He knew! Jake knew what was coming!" Time froze again. The world around them became a blur as Sarah felt a crack in her reality. "What do you mean?" she stammered, confusion swirling. In her brain. Jake? What did he know? "The meeting," the man insisted, voice shaking but firm. "You've been dragged into something bigger. The shots weren't random. They were meant for someone else." And just like that, everything slipped. Everything she thought she understood about their lives smothered under the weight of those words. Adrian's body lay there, the truth flickering in and out of focus like the erratic streetlights above them. Then, the man tossed something at her feet. It flared brightly as it hit the pavement. Another device, a flash drive. "He was protecting you," the man gasped. "But it had to come out. Find it. You need to know." Before she could respond, the figure dashed back into the smoke, sprinting into the chaos, his silhouette swallowed in the night. "Wait! Come back!" she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. But he was gone. The crowd continued to surge, fear fueling their escape. She felt Hannah tugging again, urging her away from the chaos, but her heart raced with confusion. What did he mean by all this? The truth was hidden, wrapping around them like a snake, tightening silently. "Sarah!" Hannah shouted, pulling her close. "We have to go, now!" "No," Sarah whispered, staring at the flash drive glinting in the dim light. He was right. It's not over. With adrenaline pumping through her veins, she reached for the drive, determination igniting. The danger of the moment felt palpable, the air thick with unspoken secrets. In that instant, as another siren wailed in the distance, she realized the truth wasn't just shattered. It was waiting to destroy everything she thought she knew. The answers lay ahead, but they came with a cost. And now, she had no choice but to find out what it truly meant. What was being hidden? What would it reveal? A storm brewed inside her, the next step uncertain, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be that. Same again. Sarah's fingers shook as she picked up the flash drive. The cool surface felt foreign in her palm, a tiny object with the power to change everything. Panic didn't just grip her heart, it wrapped around it, squeezing tighter. Hannah tugged at her sleeve, urgency in her eyes. "We need to go," she insisted, scanning the chaos around them, the smoke swirling like a ghostly shroud. "No, wait." Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper as she glanced back toward Adrian. His unconscious body lay there, still, a lifeless silhouette against the chaotic backdrop of fear and confusion. The sirens screamed louder, slicing through the tension, but they felt distant, muffled. Then, as if the universe had a cruel sense of timing, a loud explosion erupted from behind them. The ground shook and the air was filled with debris. A hidden door had burst open, flinging from it angry bursts of flame and smoke. More screams erupted, shattering the night. People darted, scattering like leaves caught in a storm. "Run!" Hannah shouted, yanking Sarah back to reality. But something anchored her. She couldn't take her eyes off the chaos. The figure that had been helping Adrian vanished in the thickening smoke, leaving confusion in their wake. She was suddenly terrified, not just of the unknown, but of what wasn't being said. Then, through the fog and fire, a familiar sound pierced her frantic thoughts. A voice, deep and charged with emotion. "Sarah!" It was Jake. She turned, hope igniting momentarily in her chest, but it came crashing down as she spotted him. He staggered to his feet, blood marring his shirt, face pale as death. "Get down!" he yelled, looking wild and frightened. "Jake!" she screamed, hands shaking. "What happened?" But before he could answer, a shadow moved too close, darting through the smoke, a glint of metal caught in the light. Sarah's breath hitched. Someone was charging toward them. A stranger, cloaked in darkness, raised a weapon, something unfamiliar and menacing. "Jake, move!" Hannah cried, but he only skidded forward, desperate. In one swift moment, everything exploded. The figure pulled the trigger. A deafening bang split the air. Chaos enveloped them again. Jake fell, hitting the pavement with a heavy thud. "No, not again!" Sarah wailed, falling to her knees beside him. His eyes met hers, terrified and pleading. It's not me," he choked out, hand trembling as he tried to reach for her. "You have to listen. There's something you don't know." Panic surged. What don't I know?" But before he could spill the secrets that could save them both, a flash exploded in front of them. Another shot rang out, and Hannah screamed. "Get back!" The crowd surged again, minds spinning in disbelief. The ground splintered beneath them. Sarah felt a rush of heat. Flames were catching, consuming everything in their path. "We have to go now!" Hannah cried, pulling at Sarah, desperation clawing at her voice. And then, in the eye of the storm, a figure stepped half out of the smoke, a familiar face, shadowed but undeniable. "It's too late for you to run, Sarah. You shouldn't have picked that up." Frozen in shock, Sarah's heart dropped into her stomach. It was Adrian, alive. "You knew," she breathed, all her anger and confusion swirling together like a tempest. "Yes," Adrian replied, voice steady but tinted with weariness. "But it was never supposed to be this way." Time froze once again as a flash of understanding struck her. Every choice, every step had been a thread leading to this catastrophe. But what Adrian revealed next would sever everything, hopefully, painfully, for good. "I'm your brother." A deafening silence enveloped her, legs trembling, air thickening in her chest. "Sister." The world tilted. "You? What?" The crowd became distant music, fading into a surreal haze. "Everything was for your safety. The secrets were to protect you," he said, urgency racing. Beneath every syllable. But it spiraled and now it's too late. With that, reality snapped. Everything she ever knew collided. A family, a facade, a truth buried in the ashes of pain. "What else don't I know?" she cried, the words ripping from her throat. But just then, confusion turned once more. A gunshot cracked through the air. "Run!" someone shouted, urgency rising above the smoke. And in an instant, the ground shifted again, pulling them into a nightmare they could hardly comprehend. What had she missed? What had been hidden beneath the lies? As the flames crackled and the chaos roared, Sarah felt an undeniable shift. Everything she thought she understood now hung by a thread. What awaited her in the depths of this new reality? The flames danced higher, flickering shadows casting strange faces against the walls of the building. Sarah's heart raced, pumping adrenaline as she grasped the flash drive tighter. Adrian was still there, but his eyes were distant, haunted. "Listen to me," he cried, urgency lifting his voice. "We can't stay." The chaos around them was a storm of screams and panic. The smoke thickened, swirling like a living thing. "He's coming!" Adrian shouted, looking past them, eyes wide with fear. "Who?" Hannah asked, confusion mingling with dread. Before Adrian could answer, a deafening crash rang out. The ground trembled beneath them as a door burst open behind the chaos, and a man stepped into view. A threat, imposing and menacing. He was the same hooded figure from before, now illuminated in the light of the fire. "Hello, Sarah," he said, voice smooth, like cold steel cutting through the noise. The crowd parted around him, fear draining color from their faces. "What do you want?" Sarah demanded, fury igniting inside her. But terror snaked up her spine. "You know exactly what I want," he replied, the flicker of a smirk creeping onto his lips. "I want the truth." The way he focused on her made her skin crawl. Adrian flinched, stepping in front of her. "You need to leave her alone," he warned, his voice trembling but defiant. But the figure only laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the chaos. "She is about to learn so much more than you could ever tell her." "Stop it!" Sarah yelled. But before she could process his words, before any of it could sink in, the gunman lunged forward. He charged toward Adrian, finger on the trigger. Time slowed. The crowd gasped, panic rippling through them. "No!" Sarah screamed, lunging towards Adrian, trying to pull him back. But it was too late. The shot rang out, deafening and catastrophic. Adrian doubled over, crashing to the ground beside Jake. "Adrian!" Sarah cried, her heart tearing, eyes wide with disbelief. But the hooded figure didn't stop. He turned back to Sarah, eyes filled with triumph. "Now, do you see? Your entire world is built on lies." Just then, something shifted in the air. A sound, a low rumble, began to echo, and suddenly the world was moving. The pavement beneath them cracked, and the earth shook violently, as if unleashing its secrets. The figure faltered, confusion flickering across his face. "What is this?" he asked, as the ground split wide open in a gaping chasm. "Adrian, are you okay?" Sarah shouted, kneeling beside him, tears stinging her eyes. But before Adrian could respond, the ground trembled again, sending everyone off balance. And then, in a gut-wrenching moment, an explosion erupted from below. The force blew Sarah back, throwing her to the ground. She gasped for breath, blinking against the debris, and in that moment, from the depths of the earth, a hidden compartment burst open, objects flying and sunlight pouring from the shadows. Then, amidst the chaos, stood a figure that made Sarah's blood run cold. It was their mother, a woman everyone thought was gone forever. "Sarah?" she whispered, voice shaking. Her heart clenched tightly. "Mom? Is it really you? I'm so sorry, you need to understand." But before she could finish, the ground shook again, and the figure raised a hand. "It's too late for any of this. You're all part of something bigger, and I won't let you take it from me." Sarah's world spun. Everything she thought she knew shattered. Betrayal curled in her gut. Her own mother? How deep did the lies run? "Mom, what's happening?" Hannah managed to croak, her voice trembling. But as the smoke and debris filled the air, Sarah's heart raced with fear and confusion. What have we been dragged into? What is the truth? Then silence fell. The dust settled, and all eyes turned toward the one person they least expected. Standing at the entrance, a heart pounding. Instead of answering, her mother's eyes flicked to the side, a glint of something unreadable flashing across her face. "You all think you know the truth," she murmured, steps slow and deliberate. "But the truth is more twisted than you can imagine." Adrian still lay on the ground, blood pooling around him, but Sarah couldn't tear her gaze away from the woman. "Who are you?" she managed, desperation creeping into her voice. The woman smirked, a chilling twist of her lips. "You really don't know who I am? I was the one who pulled the strings, who set this whole tragic play into motion." The revelation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "No, you can't be," Sarah breathed, the weight of her mother's past crashing down on her. If this was true, nothing felt solid anymore. Before she could grasp the implications, the figure raised a hand, halting everyone in their tracks. "You're all so naive," she said, her tone a mix of mockery and delight. "I'm here to end this charade. Your little lives, they were just pieces in a game. And now, well, it's time for the final act." "Stop!" Adrian groaned, shifting slightly, fighting against the pain. "You don't have to do this. We can fix this." The woman laughed softly, a sound that curled like smoke. "Fix it? Oh, dear Adrian, it's already too late." In a swift, unexpected motion, she pulled out a small remote. Panic surged in Sarah's chest. "What are you doing? You can't!" But she pressed a button. A blaring alarm erupted, a shrill siren drowning out everything else. The ground quaked once more, a rumble that felt like the earth itself was tearing apart. What did you do? Hannah screamed, eyes wide with fear. The woman's smile faded, replaced by a mask of cold determination. What needed to be done? There are forces at play here, far beyond your understanding. You're all just pieces in a puzzle. In that moment, explosions erupted around them. Windows shattered. The crowd recoiled, fear cascading like a wave. Sarah felt a tightness in her chest, a lump forming in her throat. "No, we need to get out!" she shouted, urgency clawing at her. Adrian scrambled to his feet, blood soaking his shirt. "Sarah, we have to—" His words were cut off as another explosion rang out, sending shards flying. But as the dust settled, a figure stumbled into view, silhouetted against the flames. It was Jake. "Wait! Everyone stop!" He looked wild, breathless, eyes frantic. "Jake!" Sarah cried out, relief flooding through her, but it was with an edge of fear. "What are you doing? Don't you see?" he yelled, desperation in every syllable. "This is what I was trying to tell you. It's not just this meeting. It's about who we really are." Her heartbeat quickened. "What do you mean? What are you hiding?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping, urgency pressing against the chaos. "You all thought it was random. The gunfire, Adrian's blood. But this is deeper. It's what we were born into." Just then, the woman smirked again, a chilling satisfaction on her face. "You're just beginning to discover who your true family is, Sarah," she taunted. Hannah shot a confused look at Sarah. "True family?" The ground shook violently again as Jake turned to face the woman with a look of anger and defiance. "You've been keeping this from us. It ends now." Before anyone could react, Jake lunged toward the woman. The gun went off, the shot ringing loud and clear, cracking through the air. As he fell, Sarah's world shattered. Time slowed, and the fear that had been building erupted violently. "Jake, no!" she screamed. Then everything went black. The silence that followed was deafening, a heavy shroud enveloping them all. Sarah's heart ached, a deep anguish cutting through her. What had just happened? What would they all learn from this disastrous act? As the dust of betrayal and chaos settled, one question loomed larger than all else. Would they ever truly know the people they loved? The world around Sarah seemed to slow, the shocking sound of the gunshot echoing in her ears like a thunderclap. Jake's body hit the ground, and everything inside her felt like it was fracturing. The chaos swirled, screams filled the air, drowning out her thoughts. She felt paralyzed, as if some invisible force was holding her in place. "Jake!" she cried, her voice raw, but no one seemed to hear. Panic gripped her heart, squeezing tighter and tighter, each beat resonating with terror. She could feel the heat of the flames licking at her ankles. She knew they had to move, but her feet wouldn't obey. Adrian stirred near her, bloodied but defiantly pressing himself up. "Get back!" he yelled, eyes wild with fear for them all. "We need to get out of here." But Sarah's heart was torn. She didn't want to leave Jake behind. Not like this. "We can't just leave him." Her voice trembled, flickers of desperation mingling with the hysteria around them. The hooded figure grinned, moments before disappearing completely into the smoke. "It'll all come crashing down now," his voice echoed, a horrible promise wrapped in malice. For a breathless instant, she felt the world teetering on the edge of destruction. With adrenaline pumping through her, she dropped to the ground beside Jake. "Wake up! Please!" Tears streamed down her cheeks as she gently shook him, her fingers trembling, desperate for him to respond. His eyes fluttered open, pain etched across his face. "Sarah," he gasped, his voice barely above a whisper. "You need to know. You were never safe." The truth hit her like a punch to the stomach. "What do you mean? What does this all mean?" But just then, another explosion rocked the building. Sarah ducked, instinctively covering Jake's body with her own. The earth shuddered beneath them, sending shockwaves of fear coursing through her. "Not like this!" Adrian shouted, pulling her up, his face pale but determined. "We are leaving, now." With a jolt, Sarah realized the flames were spreading too quickly. The heat intensified, and she felt the suffocating grip of smoke in her lungs. "Jake, you need to get up," she implored, panic rising in the pit of her stomach. He groaned, struggling to draw breath. I can't move." "Hold on, I'll carry you." She wasn't pinking. Instinct alone drove her. She heaved him up, adrenaline overriding the fear weighing down her heart. "We've got to go." Together, they stumbled through the chaos, bodies darting around them, panic overflowing everywhere. Hannah was by their side, her eyes wide with fear. "This way! Follow me!" With every step, Sarah felt the weight of the flash drive in her pocket. The secrets, the lies, everything was bearing down on her. "We'll figure it all out later," she shouted through the noise, tugging Jake's arm over her shoulder. "I need you to trust me," Adrian urged, his voice fierce with urgency. "We can't let her win!" The group hurried through the debris, every heartbeat echoing in Sarah's ears. They burst through a doorway just as another explosion roared behind them, the building now a raging inferno. Outside, the night air was cooler, but the chaos pressed in on them like a looming shadow. Jake leaned heavily against her, pale and weak, but determination flickered in his eyes. "We can't let her get away with this," he rasped. "Then we won't," Sarah shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. They would expose the truth, no matter the cost. As they all stood there, breathing in the cool night air, she knew what needed to happen. "Next, we'll get answers," she vowed, locking eyes with Jake. Together, their fates were intertwined, woven tighter than secrets. They would unravel this nightmare, no matter what lay ahead. And as sirens blared in the distance, illuminating the dark skies with flashing lights, she realized the fight was just beginning. But now, they were ready to face it together. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and truly understand the importance of being part of this journey. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now.